Introducing Minor Wisdom Quintet.
1, 2, a skidda-didda-doo.
Minor Wisdom.
My apologies for taking a week off last week. We're almost on episode 100, and I'm trying to think to myself what could make that episode special, but that is no excuse. I did take last week off. I was in a show last week that will be put out there somehow in December. It was a show directed by Destiny Miller. I was in it. I was Sam, the white guy that gets killed. Spoiler alert if you're going to be watching it. Oh, I should have said that first. Anyway, but this is it was a fun show. It was about the Tulsa riots in the 20s, which is not a fun topic, but it's a topic nonetheless. And it was fun in regards to being on stage and doing theater. And it was through Mildred's Umbrella and Inshurian. I believe I'm saying that correctly. I hope I am. If I'm not, I'll correct myself next week. But I know for sure I've got next week's podcast in the can. This week I have Michelle Nguyen. And I've got to tell you, she is a part of Thespian, the board, but she was a part of the most recent Super Saturday and with T-Tan, and showing off kind of her skills in getting kids involved and having difficult discussions about race and gender and stereotypes and all that stuff. And I just thought, I've got to have her on. Now, here's the thing. We barely touched the surface when it comes to that stuff. We barely talked about any of that work that she's done. So it just means that there's going to have to be a part 2. And in some cases, we always know that part 2 is sometimes better than part 1. I mean, look at the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Secret of the Ooze. Some might argue the second Back to the Future is better. Most people would tell you that Rocky 2 was better than Rocky 1. Rocky 3 was definitely better than all of those. But anyway, I digress, but I had Michelle on, and I wanted to get to know her. She's new to teaching, and she's not new anymore. I mean, she's been around for, I think, 4 or 5 years, as you'll hear it in the intro in a minute, and also my memory sucks. But I had her on, and we had a great discussion, and just had a conversation and just talked. So I hope you enjoy it. I will give you full disclosure. I talk a lot in this episode, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I was having a conversation, and when I have conversations, it's more of a monologue. Anyway, I hope you get to know Michelle a little bit better. If you don't know her, get to know her. Enjoy Michelle Nguyen.
Hi, I'm Michelle Nguyen. I live in Houston, Texas. I teach at Cypress Ridge High School, so in the Cypher district. A little about me. Number one, I don't have a theater degree. So a lot of people and I'm also I'm the head director at Cy Ridge too. I don't have a theater degree. I'm a comm major. A lot of my background, well, granted, I've done theater since I was 12. And so I've done like acting, performance. And then when I got into high school, I was under Brian Moses. A lot of people know Brian Moses. So Brian was my director, and then we ended up being colleagues as well. And I'll get into that, I guess, the chronological order of how I got my job. So I was heavily involved in theater in high school. I did, Texas Thespians. I was a state officer in high school as well as a student state officer, and UIL was a really big part of my high school life, I guess, too, where I was heavily involved into that. We did really well, I guess, my senior year too, because I played it was a show called Lucy, and to this day, it's like still one of my favorite shows that I was involved in. And then afterwards, when I went to college, I had some family stuff that happened. I had the senior moment where I had to decide, do I want to stay in Texas or move out somewhere? And it was between going to U of H and, technically get a full ride with the grants and scholarships I had schooling wise, or, go to Louisiana and go to LSU for theater and film. And ultimately had some stuff that happened, and I chose to go to U of H. And it was just a lot of soul searching, a lot of figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I was grateful that, I love the school that I was in, Valenti, and it was media production. So I did a lot of script writing in that program, a lot of set work, so lighting and set design. It was different because it was more on the film side of things. And then um, towards my senior year, it was just like, well, what am I gonna do now? Like, do I gotta like leave and go to Austin or go to LA and find a job? And there was just a lot of uncertainty. And then literally 2 months out, Brian gave me a call. And like Crystal Lori, she was also my director too. She was like, there was a position open, and he was like, "Do you want it?" And he called me, and I was like, "Am I qualified?" And he said, "No, no, no, you'll be qualified." I'm like, "Okay, what do I do?" And so I got certified. And during that time too, I was going out of the country for like kind of my senior trip too. I was like, "Well, I'm gonna go to Korea in a month, so what do I have to do?" He said, "Get your certification. I'll talk to Miss Michelle," which was our principal, "and we'll get that situated." We got that, I guess, pretty much I finished the program within 2 months and got my content. Like, I crammed the exam, got certified, all that stuff. And somehow in July, things were good. And I became a teacher, my first year teaching in 27, was it 2017? Yeah, 2017. So this is my fourth year of teaching. And then just jumping ahead, 1 year later after first year of teaching, Brian was like, "Well, we all knew this was going to happen." I'm like, "What's going to happen?" He's like, "I'm leaving." And I'm like, "Oh gosh, what's next?" So he went to U of H, he went back to for grad school, and it was a crazy, crazy summer because we were all trying to find like a lead director for Ridge. And I was like, "Well, I'm just stepping behind." I'm like, "I'm still, the associate, like just back behind doing my thing." And then my principal called me, I think probably 2 weeks before in service, and she said, "Hey, so I know we had this conversation prior, but like, do you just want to take it?" I'm like, "Take what?" And she's like, "Do you just want to be lead?" I'm like, "What's it? Am I qualified?" And she's like, "No, you are. Like, you are. You just need to step up and do it." And so I did, and now I'm here. And it's been a crazy, crazy journey in my teaching career so far. I want to say it's really fast, but I think I have a lot of drive and grit to it, and I love what I do, and so I'm happy where I am. And if anything, I fell in love with this profession more and more on a daily basis. Because I can tell you, a lot of the times, I think a lot of like this teaching experience has been like, am I good enough? Am I qualified enough? And kind of like a lot of self doubt. But at the end of the day, I see my kids and they're really happy, and we have a lot of accomplishments as well. And I was a little shy to talk about it. But no, like I'm very proud. My first year lead director, my kids, they made it to area in UIL, and then we made it to district following year, and then the pandemic shut us down and all that stuff. But it's just, I'm seeing their accomplishments and thinking, okay, maybe I'm doing something right. Like, so that's, I guess, a little bit of how I got
Yeah.
into this job. So yeah.
So you stayed in the arts though, in entertainment though. You mentioned that you didn't have a theater degree, but you
Mhm.
talked about being very active still as an artist. So I
Yes.
think there's something to be said about that. What ended up being your degree? Like, what was the degree?
So it's communications and
Okay,
media production. So that's because U of H has like, because if you're in communications, you can go to broadcast
got it.
journalism in general. But I did media production, so it
Okay,
was still, it's like our film program.
right. Do you ever like get that longing feeling to try the LA thing?
Well, I guess we can start talking into the things about the doubt and all the uncertainty that I had. Um, my family, when I see where they're coming from, I've always grown up, like I knew that I had to do something where I had to be stable for my family. And I think a lot of it just comes from my culture as well. I'm the eldest, so I'm a bigger sister. Granted, my brother is like super tall, and so I call him Big Little Bro. Um, and we kind of had a balance because we're actually both really artsy. He's actually like, he likes to draw and stuff, and he kind of had to drop his like artistic like love, and he's doing nursing right now. I told my mom, I was like, I can't do nursing. I see blood and I'm going to faint, and it's just not happening. Your daughter's just not going to do that. So we were both always really artsy, and she was artsy too, but she had to give up all that and coming to America and getting a job and all that stuff. And so for me, it was more so, okay, I got to be stable. I'm kind of technically the head of the house when it comes to like financing and all that stuff too. I grew up with like mom gives me this medical bill and says translate this for me. I'm like 7. I'm like, I don't know what this word is. And so I'm just like, I
Yeah,
think
because
Google doesn't
it's like Latin, isn't it?
yeah,
It's
I was
not
just
even.
like, I don't know what to do with this. So it was just a lot of that. And so a part of me, maybe in my early 20s, and I'm only 26. I'm entering late 20s right now. So it's a pivotal moment right now. I
Yeah.
have my quarter life crisis, and I'm entering my late 20s. And a part of me feels early 20s maybe. Early 20s maybe I was all like, I wish I had like, got up and went to LA and like, tried it out stuff. But I guess I'm also really like pessimistic during those early 20s
Sure.
too, where I'm just thinking finding my hesitation has always been like it's really hard for an Asian American to break it into the industry, to get that stable career in general. I could be auditioning nonstop.
Right.
I can be having side jobs. I can have that hustle and all that stuff. And it just for me, it just wasn't really for me. I was
Right.
more on so like I need to make money now. I need to like take care of my family. And
Yeah.
I think that's where my values stood at that point. So I
So
think it's always been like that, I
do
guess.
you ever think it's kind of your parents' fault that you and your brother are artistic? Like, you don't just develop those genes. They're kind of instilled in you. So, I mean, do you ever like look at your mom and be like, "Hey, this is kind of your fault a little bit?" Or
Oh,
does she, because, and I know you mentioned this in a recorded session with Thespian, so I hope you don't mind me saying this, but your mom is a nail, I don't get this done.
manicurist,
So
right? She's
a
a
manicurist, thank you.
cosmetologist.
Like,
Yeah,
I'm not trying to belittle it. I just don't get it done. So it's not a vocab word that's in my head very often, but
yeah.
my wife and mother-in-law do it all the time. But yeah, she's a manicurist. So, and that's an art. I mean, that like, as crazy as it sounds, girl, I look at some of these nails that some people get done, and it's like that person has to be precise, like a steady hand and all that stuff. So even though that's probably not what your mom thought she was going to be doing as a life, when she was probably your age or younger, it's an art. She's an artist. So I think there's something, maybe you can go back to your mom and be like that, Blake said this is all your fault. She can be mad at me, but it's kind of, you know what I mean? I don't know where I'm going with that. It's not necessarily a question. It's more of a statement, but, it's funny because, and this will go into something I want to talk about later with you, but and again, I said I was about to say off camera. There's no camera. I'm not recording this video, but I said before we started recording that one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was just the passion that you have about the hard conversations, those difficult conversations that you have with people. And say the name of the exercise that we did on Saturday.
We're really not
We're
strangers.
really not strangers. Okay. So that whole thing is talking about, it's kind of stereotyping each other, and stereotyping classmates and teachers and people that you see, and then getting to know what actually that person is all about. Looking at somebody and saying they must do this because they look like this, when
Mhm.
really it's completely opposite. And so one of the things you mentioned is you look at at an Asian woman and you have assumptions, right? And you said they're a doctor, they're a nurse, there's something in those fields, the 12 years of college fields, and that's not always the case. So it's actually probably less the case than than what is normal. So because it's a small group of people that are doctors and lawyers and such. So I again, I don't know exactly. This isn't a question necessarily, but it's just kind of a funny statement that um, you're talking about how your brother kind of left everything to be a nurse, and the sight of blood for you is gonna make you sick. And you're a theater teacher, and there's no shame in that. And teaching is one of the most well respected professions. Uh, all that said, I want to completely ignore everything I just said, and I do have a question for you. Going
Yeah.
back to the LA thing, um, do you think now, and I know it's only 4 years later, and I know that politically speaking, our country's in kind of a weird spot right now, but do you think now, today, it's easier for you to be recognized in LA and have a fighter's chance compared to 4 years ago when these discussions weren't happening nearly as often? When Hamilton posts, we want audition people to audition that aren't white. It specifically says it in the audition. All the Academy Awards are now saying we're only going to recognize movies that have black actors as options. Do you think it's now easier for an Asian American to go off to LA or New York and try to live their dream and see it through, or do you think it's still the struggle?
I would say there's definitely been progress, and a lot of it, and I guess my stance is like with for the Asian American, like the Asian American community, when it comes to like their film industry, I feel like we're kind of like on a separate like area of how we audition for shows. And I only know from experience of like my friends who are actually Asian Americans working over there. A lot of it's commercial work. I mean, so to say there are more opportunities to audition for things, but even then you run, and I don't think it's just particular Asian American race, but I think in any minority race as well, where you're gonna have the stars who've already, like let's say a top film thing, they're gonna be the same actors that are, and like right now you're really big with Constance Wu, was it Ken Jong, like his community, like they kind of made their own niche, and it's a really tight circle too. And then for I know for and if you're LA and if you're like in the Asian community, we all know Wong Fu Productions. They're really big on YouTube, and a lot of their actors became actors as well, and they collaborate. So it's a very small niche group, and I would say there is, if you find your way, if you know someone to get yourself in that position. So there's pros and cons. I'm just gonna use the word hustle a lot
Right.
because I just that's what it is. That's
Yeah.
really what it is. It's just you just gotta have that drive to constantly, and I think that's just something that everyone like struggles, like any actor
Yeah.
in LA is going through. Is like you have to do it because you love it. You don't do it because you need money. And I guess on my stance, I guess it sounds really bad. I needed money and I
Yeah.
wanted stability, and I don't have shame saying that because that's just where my value is I want to take care of my parents
Yeah.
and give back to the things that they have done for me because they've done so much. So
Yeah.
that's my thing. Yeah.
No, there's absolutely no shame in that. I mean, that's why I got into education. It's because I wanted this stable paycheck. And I like kids, and my mom was an educator,
Mhm.
so I mean, it's not like teachers don't get into it for the payment. They should be paid more, but they don't get into it because they're paid. But the consistent paycheck is there's nothing to that's very normal. Speaking of normal, so I wanted to. You don't seem intimidated by much, and maybe that's an external trait. And I don't know how you feel internally. Like maybe inside you're nervous as all get out, but you have been around now, and I know that you help with state thespian officers and such on the board, and because you were one, which I did not know that, by the way. So I'll ask a question about that a little later. But was it nerve wracking at all to just be kind of thrust into uh, uh, this pool of kind of state Hall of Fame directors that are on the board, and I'm not including myself in that. I'm talking about Amy Jordan and Darla. Um, was it nerve wracking, or did you just kind of go in because you already kind of had a relationship with them as a student to educator? Did you go in full like ready to go, or was there a little bit of a hesitation? Were there some nerves for you?
I want to say probably my first year teaching. Nicole reached out and said, "So you're gonna come in eventually, right? And I said,
Right.
I'll think about
Yeah.
it. I don't know. Like I'm still trying to figure out like my first year teaching and who I am as a teacher and all that stuff. And then the second year came in, and I think Nicole also was like, "Hey," and I was like, "I just got into like this lead position. Like I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure things out." And then going to my third year at festival, she asked me in conversation again. I was like, you know what, I think I'm ready. Like I'm ready to go, kind of thing. I think it plays a lot with my personality. So a lot of people, like even my students, think that I'm an extrovert, where all that stuff. But I like to say that I'm an introvert that can act like an extrovert, and I think that just comes with my acting. Not that I'm acting on a daily basis, but it sounds really bad if I say that. But in a way, I think I kind of just push myself forward. And I would have to say that a lot of that comes from Brian. Like Brian would
Sure.
always see how like scared and hesitant I was. And he's like, just do it, just be confident. And he would always do this thing where you're like, he would say, why? And I used to be so mad when he would say that. Maybe we're cutting this out, but because he would always like question,
Oh, he won't
okay,
care.
he's like, okay, Michelle, but why? And I'm like, what do you mean why? Like
Yeah.
it's just something I just don't know. It's just like I just have this fear and this, and I get nervous, and now sometimes I just look back and I'm like, you know what? Who cares about why? Just do it. Like don't. It doesn't have. There doesn't need to be an answer to things. You just do it. Um. So I guess for the most part, I don't feel nerve-wracking. I look up to everyone on that board. If anything, it was an opportunity for me to learn so much from these educators who have been involved in this program for so long and who have like, that mission statement of wanting the best for us like Texas students. And so I think having that mentality hasn't made me feel like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like this is, crazy. It's more so like this is an opportunity for me to learn really good stuff
Yeah.
and, make those connections. And even if I have to sit on the sideline just watching, like
Right.
that's also an opportunity for me to feel really grateful for. So
Right. It's funny, Brian, my first experience with Brian Moses, um, who's this tough exterior, but not so much inside. My first experience with him was I worked at the Berry Center, and Christine Potter, who I don't know if you know Christine, but she also is a Moses kid, would tell me these stories about this guy that was like just rough and tough, but everybody loved him. Everybody respected him and uh, realized. I think he's one of those educators though that you don't realize what you have until you've left him. As a student, that's just kind of the feeling that I get from some of his former students. But I got to see him work as a one act play director, and that's the only time was when I was at the Berry Center, and I was like, yeah, I see that, I get it. I get that about Brian Moses, but he's also the dude's a volunteer firefighter. Like you're not, yeah, you're tough on the outside, but you have to have a pretty dang soft heart to want to do something like that for free. So that's just one of those things. I love Brian Moses. He and I have had many a good conversation now, but and I guess I didn't realize you were a Moses kid. Do you guys call yourself anything? Like, is there a nickname for you guys or?
no,
No,
I
no.
just no.
Yeah, just I don't know. He's got a legend. He's got a legend of kids out there. So, when you were a state thespian officer, is that something you wanted to do that you were driven to do, or is that something that Moses kind of said you'd be a good fit for this, or was that something that when you saw that was an opportunity, did you go for it, or were you kind of like encouraged to go for it?
I was definitely encouraged and pushed.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea. Like it was, I think my sophomore year or so. He kind of like looked and said, "Hey, would you want to do that?" I was like, "What is that?" I was like, as a sophomore, like, I didn't know what Texas thespian was. This was a whole new field. I'm like, I just want to work on my group scene and like, and play and do the dance like workshops and stuff. That was my drive. He's like, just think about it, and he would definitely. He made me, not made me, but like he pushed me to go to the leadership workshop. I think my junior year, and that's when I ran for board. And I think a lot of it, I guess he saw something, and I'm really
Right.
grateful for like he saw something in me to push me. Because I mean, if I saw myself, I was like, she's really shy and timid, and I don't know, like you really want her to be in this, but I mean, he pushed me, and
Yeah.
and it worked out for the best. And I really enjoyed it. And I would say high school me is very different from how I am now. And I
Sure.
think Nicole can attest to it too. Like I was very different when I was in high school until now, I guess.
Do you,
Growth.
do you recognize a state thespian officer when you see him now that you're an educator? Like
As
do
in,
you
oh
like
yes, oh
when
yeah.
when
I
they're
think
going through the process is what I mean.
one of my students is currently on the board right now as a student officer. And it's just like the qualities where I see, I think for me it's like number one is organization. And I think if you can find a student who has that at an early age, because generically a lot of high schoolers they like to like push things off their very last minute. But when I see someone with like organization, someone with so much positivity and light in their eyes, it's just something like I can't give up this opportunity for you. I need you to like, I don't know, it was like just me, but like, hey, just when I asked one of my student Victoria, I was like, hey, like you really should look into this, and let me know if you have any questions. I kind of give them the choice first before pushing them in, only because, and I give compliments to students I think that really do deserve it. I'm trying my best not. Well, I think nowadays as educators, we're all trying to go away from complimenting things that, oh, you're doing your job, good
Yeah,
job. Like
yeah.
we're kind of getting sick and tired of that, but sometimes maybe they do need that where you're like, oh, you're doing your job.
Hmm.
Way to go, buddy. Like, that's awesome. Like, you're doing what I asked you to do. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
Uh, but for her, it's just like, I don't need to. I'm doing more compliments with her just to check in with her too. It's her senior year and everything. But it's just when you see that kid that just has so much leadership qualities, you
Yeah.
just, and they love doing what they like to do. You're like, try it. You never know. There might be some learning opportunities for you in there. And she's doing great. She's doing so great.
Is there something that you see her doing now that you wish you were able to have done, what is it, 8 years ago, I guess now, that when you were a state thespian officer?
So we have like with the STOs, and that's something like Nicole and we kind of all have said is like, we're going to leave this to a group of kids who are going to make it better. And I think the opportunities that are they like the network and the connections that they're making now on such a huge scheme of like things now, and even now with the virtual festival, because this has been super crazy with all the student officers just like running things and their organization. Like technology has made it so much easier, because I remember we were at UT Austin in that little room with a chalkboard in the back where I wrote all the agenda for festival. And for them, they're just like, oh, we have an Excel sheet. Everybody, plummet it in. Because I started, Google Docs happen probably around my senior year of high school, entering college. So it was me learning, and I was like on the media side. So I did a lot of like the social, like I made the website and all that stuff. So I was like learning the program and also implementing for the program as well. And now for the students now, they have all that technology or they're familiar with it. And now you have, Adobe Creative Cloud and all these programs that students are quick learners. I think
Yeah.
sometimes we forget that. Sometimes they're quicker learners than I am. And I'm like, I'm still in my early, I'm in my 20s and I'm still like,
Quarter
doing
life
this.
crisis. That's what you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's quarter life crisis right now. So it was just, I would say tech wise is a lot easier for
Right.
them now because it's just like right in front of them kind of thing. And it's grown a lot bigger as well too. So in theory is like a bigger group means you're going to have more hands to help. And so
Right.
for the most part, it has been very helpful with that too. Because I think we were like 13 students, and we had, I think, 5,000 at festival. And now
Yeah.
we were like reaching 9,000 and all that stuff. So it's just, I was overwhelmed when I came back to go to festival as a teacher, because
Right.
I was like, wow, this is crazy
Do,
how big it's gotten. And we were at the Gaylord. I think that's when I
yeah.
first came back. So
Is
that's like
there
my sense.
is there a pair of shoes you recommend to a state thespian officer that or somebody that wants to be? Because I know you guys. I mean, especially back when we were at in Dallas, the K. Bailey Hutchinson Center or whatever that
Oh,
was, the Omni. You guys were running around. I mean, you guys had miles per day running around, but that was kind of a tongue-in-cheek question. But I know it's a lot different than now. I know the Gaylord's big, but man, that that Omni K Bailey center was just that was a lot, especially going to the theater. Yeah. Anyway, that's just my own little soapbox. But completely switching gears. You mentioned that you at the end of your college time you were going to Korea. Is that true? Okay,
Yes.
so why? Would you? I mean, like, what'd you go for?
Oh, so just personal life.
Okay.
I'm a huge I travel a lot. I've so this is just we're playing Asian stereotypes and I'm just falling right into it. I'm a
Sure.
huge, huge K-pop fan.
Okay.
So South Korea has always been on like my bucket list to go. I was supposed to go again in Japan this summer, but we had the
Yeah.
pandemic and all that stuff. But I have traveled to like all around the not all around the world, like traveled within the states to go see concerts of like I'm like idols I'm really a huge fan of. So right now BTS is really big.
Wasn't there a pop up tent like yesterday or 2 days ago or something? That Yeah,
Probably.
okay. Because I saw somebody post that they were a friend of mine, a guy named Ratmini, who I went to high school with, posted that he was waiting on his wife and daughter yesterday. He was off eating food, lunch or something, and he was just doing it by himself, hanging out by himself because his wife and kid were at a BTS pop up tent. So
Sounds about right. It's either a tent or at a tea shop. That's
yeah,
always been the thing. So I've seen BTS 3 times in my life. Then
what?
people ask like, you ask for stability, but you're really just spending your money on traveling and like going to these concerts and fanning over
Sure.
pretty people. I'm like, yeah, and I'm happy with that. So seen BTS 3 times in my life: New York, Dallas, and then LA.
Okay.
I've gone to Atlanta for Blackpink. So I've just been to a lot of concerts, and so I love the culture. I love Korean food. I love watching Korean dramas. It's just, I guess it's in my culture that we
Right.
like doing that because you see that often. Even my acting, a lot of it comes from like actors that I'm like really, and I think a part of it is also it's like I'm seeing people that I don't really see here as much. Like we do have like Asian
Sure.
representation that's getting better, but I think when I look at like Korean dramas or listen to Korean music, even though I'm not Korean, I don't understand most of what they're saying. It's I guess rooted in like I'm seeing people that are me,
Yeah.
and like even with acting too, it's just like kind of like the
Yeah.
nuances and all that stuff too. And there's like really good, films like even Parasite, which won Best Picture this year. It's like they're the same storytellers. It's just you're just reading like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's subtitles. There's such just and I there was such a huge controversy on that. They're like it's not an American film, but it's not an Oscar
Yeah.
film. Like,
It's so dumb.
yeah, like
Uh, yeah, I equate that to like I love Narcos, the show Narcos,
mhm.
which the only reason I don't watch like I can't watch it with my kids around clearly. Uh, but that's one of those shows you can't just have as background noise.
Mhm.
It's the same thing for probably you watching some sort of Korean film or something. It's like you have to actually pay attention. You don't know the language. So, it's like, man, I have to actually sit down and watch this. I can't just let it be background noise. What is it about? My wife and I actually topically talked about this yesterday. What is it about BTS that like is it the boy band? I know they are a boy band, but is it that sort of late 90s, early 2000s feel to them because they are a good looking group of, dudes?
I could have like a whole conversation on K-pop.
Them specifically, not K-pop, the whole genre,
Yeah.
but
And I would be honest, I feel like, and I think this is just the American view with a lot of like articles
sure.
and stuff, is I think the generic view is like, is BTS like the next Backstreet Boys and Sync, One Direction
I think
kind
they're
of thing?
bigger
There's
already.
they're a lot big. They're making money, so much money for South
Right.
Korea. That's how big they are, and to the point where they're pushing their military. Like a lot, like in Korean culture, like South Korea, you have to go to the military. Like
Right.
you are, like if you're a man, you're required to go to the military before you're 30. Like they postponed it to like 30 now. And like BTS hasn't isn't the only boy band in Korea too. And
Sure.
I think a lot of people there's like so many. I want to say it's different in like their training system. A lot of people don't know that like to be an artist or an idol, and I think that's why they have such a huge fan base too, because you follow them when
From
they're
yeah,
training as well. Because you got, in America, you go to school, like we're legal, students are legally allowed. Like when you're before 18, you have to go to high school and all that
right,
stuff. They have an opportunity to do tutoring because they have, and they do a training where they're training from like, I go to, tutoring school, and then I'm training from 3 to midnight, and I'm training all the way till my like their teenage years are gone technically,
right,
because you got some of them who started training when they were 10 and then not really debuting into their career till they're like 18 or so.
right.
And it's like very different. It's just their culture is very different. It's like for an advanced, it's weird because it's like for an advanced country, they're so backwards because they're growing so fast that they're not like keeping up, like their laws aren't like up to date with
Sure.
it and stuff. So I
Well, they're
think
they're 20 years behind the boy band craze. I mean,
joke. Yeah, and it's yeah, I mean I guess they're hard work and they're very talented.
right.
Like they're not just, dancing on stage. Like they work a lot of hours, and I guess I just been a huge fan of them since early. And that's like the new age, because like the older age music is like
Sure.
21, Girls' Generation and all that stuff, but they've never made it big in America. They've definitely, like the boy is the BTS and then the girl is Blackpink right now.
Okay.
Um, I don't know,
I'll
like
take your
we're
word
going
for it.
on a
Yeah.
tangent with
I'll,
the
I'll
K-pop.
what so besides Korea, where's the best Korean food you've ever had?
Oh, Houston has a
Not
Houston,
just Houston. You mentioned you saw them in Dallas. Yeah,
Dallas. Yeah.
LA. Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so many. I will say though, it's kind of crazy, but I probably might get some. Like people would be like, "What?" I really thought like American Korean food was kind of better than
Sure.
Korean food over there. It's just, I think it's just acquired like American acquired taste. Like we like our things a lot
Yeah.
saltier, a lot unhealthier, I
Yeah.
guess. Um, Korean barbecue is like I love Korean. Have you ever had Korean barbecue
Oh yeah.
before?
Yeah.
I love Korean barbecue. Um, but I think the one that just stands out to me right now, and I've had recently, there's a place called Bori,
Okay.
on Long Point, and it's just really high quality meat. And they cook everything for you. It's really bougie looking. So if you ever want to feel fancy, you want to like a nice date night, or with a good group of friends, it's just really high quality meats. And there's an art gallery right next door
Okay.
too, and they have like the little pots of like where they cook all their kimchi and all that stuff too. So I mean, that's the one right now that's on top of my head that
Do
kind of stuck
do you
out.
cook?
I do cook. I do cook. I cook a lot of times I help with my mom
Yeah.
cooking some Vietnamese food.
What's better, Vietnamese or Korean?
Oh,
I mean, one is probably more like that home feel. Obviously, the
yeah,
Vietnamese is because your mom cooks that, but
yeah. Like my mom, like, because I think that's like everyone's moms, where they're all
sure.
like,
Well, not mine.
oh,
Mine was I didn't know what a fresh green bean was until I got married because my mom
oh,
used to pour them out of a can, and so I was like, these
oh,
green beans are delicious. And then I had a fresh green bean, which is nothing like a Denti can or whatever. And I was like, what is this? What is this little cute little green thing? Like, that's a green bean. It's just fresh. It's like, oh,
mm,
yeah, my mom was not a cook.
oh.
So pizza is very nostalgic for me. Uh, but yeah, I mean, like, go back to that question. I mean, is it, or maybe I should ask not what do you like better? What do you like to make better? Like, is there more fun in one compared to another? Since
Uh,
you're so like immersed in this Korean world.
and that's all I'm gonna be known for. It's like, oh, I'm
No,
such
that's not.
a
No,
good
it's
person.
not.
It
You'll be
was
known as Brian Moses's kid too. Anyway, so
Oh, I guess easy, like ramen. Like let's talk about
oh
ramen in
sure,
general, because
but
like I think but we just gotta
yeah,
prepare it right.
yeah,
So
ramen in a cup is not like yeah, okay, yeah, keep going. Yeah,
yeah, it's just like when you make ramen, I like spicy food. I can't eat
yeah,
soup. I think as I'm getting older, my body just doesn't react to spicy food as well as it used to. And I love like sometimes you just like it's like 2 in the morning and you're like hungry
yeah,
or something, and you're like, this is a quick, easy bowl, and you add an egg to it, onions, you can
yeah,
add protein. I don't like my noodles like bloated. I like it like kind of halfway, like al dente. Like I think that's how you
Sure.
pronounce it.
Yeah, al
Like
dente. Yeah.
halfway kind of thing.
You're
I
asking the
like
wrong guy, but sure. Yeah.
I make a lot of stews, like
Okay.
spicy soup stews with
What is
tofu.
what is your definition of spicy?
Oh,
Like,
like I said, I can't eat spicy like crazy, but I like that little kick.
right.
But I know people who can eat so much. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if you ever had the spicy volcano noodles that a lot of it's like a
I
trend where you're eating like it's like this hot chicken spicy ramen that's like super super spicy where you're like it's like burning your tongue. I think
right.
they have like habanero in there too.
Yeah, I mean, I get looked at funny because I have one of my best friends is he's a white dude, but he's immersed himself in the Chinese culture, specifically Cantonese, not Mandarin,
Mhm.
and so he's fluent in Cantonese now, which is very odd for like people to like to interact with him and then him speak fluent Cantonese. But he married a Cantonese woman. I mean, like he bought in, right? And so we would go. This is 6 7 years ago. We would go to Chinatown here in Houston, which is like Bel Air and the Beltway ish. And I love spicy food. Like I like spicy. I like burning my tongue, spicy food. And so I would tell them make it spicy, and they'd look at me like how spicy, and I'm as spicy as you can make it, and they would do it, and it's I don't know, there's something about it. I guess it gets your endorphins going and stuff, and you're at the time you're like I'm dying right now, but then when you're done you're like I want some more. So you don't handle it
No, I
in,
can't reach that
in
level.
your
I would
old
probably
age now.
yeah, like I probably could not handle that at all. Even when I see Brian eat like when he eats his foods, like he throws so much jalapenos
Oh
on
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'm just like I could never. You have fun, but
right,
I could never.
right,
No, it's just like a decent spice where I'm just like I'm content.
right,
Like
sure,
this is all I need. So yeah, I like a lot making a lot of soups. And I bake a lot of stuff too, like bake cookies
right.
and just a lot of homey type of things. So yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, baking is. I like trying it. If do you watch the Great British Baking Show?
I
Oh
don't watch
my
I know it's on my
gosh,
Netflix trending though.
you're not a real baker then. But that's one of those shows that I watch it and I'm like, I could do this, and then I try to go in the kitchen and flowers everywhere, and it looks, yeah, it looks like a Tyrone Bingham's sketch on Dave Chappelle. But anyway, yeah, no, I enjoy it too, but it's so precise. So I'm switching gears again,
Yeah, okay.
going back again. Okay, going back to theater and teaching. Um, since you're still kind of new to the game, but also you're a head director that was kind of thrust into it. Now, going back to what you said your principal called you, and I will tell you as a certified administrator, no principal is going to call one of their own, or one of their people, one of their educators, and ask them to do something unless they thought they were qualified to do it. So have a little more. you should be you should be more like, yeah, that's a cool thing. That's cool for your principal to do that. They obviously trusted you. So anyway, that's a whole different. That's an older educator talking to a younger educator. But speaking of that, I want to know something that you would tell a new educator that is kind of in your same shoes, and there are a lot of you that come straight out of college that didn't realize they wanted to do education, and then they do the alternative certification process. Is there a piece of advice that you would give one of these fresh out of college students that may be a little apprehensive, hesitant to jump into education, and maybe not specifically theater, but that's what you know. So it can be specifically to theater. But is there something and it can be simple. I know I have a good friend that said, I didn't know how to buy rights. I didn't know that was a thing. Um, but is there something or some things that you would give some free advice to those educators that are jumping in to say, hey, it's okay. You'll be fine. Here's why.
Um, for me, I actually had this conversation before because a lot of some of my friends are thinking about like going to the education
Sure.
field. Um, and just because I'm very observant and with the things that I see and what I'm going through as well. I always just root back to the simple question is like, do you like kids? You know, it's just simple as like, do you like kids? Because if you don't like kids, I don't really think you should go into it. And I know first, and I think for me is it's like I think long term, do you like kids? Now do you want know that you're going into a profession that it's not about the payment because we're not getting as paid as much as we should be getting paid with the hours that we're working. I mean, especially when we're on a show, we could be working 12, 13 hours a day. Sometimes we're waking up 3 in the morning and like, oh, we have an idea for something for a show like that. So it roots back. I always just go root back to the first question is like, do you like kids? And are you willing to invest in your time and your commitment for them? Because that's what the profession calls for. Um, and I think that's one. And then two is, are you willing to grow? I think a lot of the times we start getting burned out is when we feel stuck and we're like, I don't know what to do now, especially with the change. And I'm not speaking just the pandemic. And I think this was something that I was going through pretty much last school year. And it wasn't much of a burnout. It was just more of like, I am getting thrown with so many things happening to me this school year. And I am very grateful. Like I teach at a Title I school. So I have a very diverse group of kids. I have the poorest of the poor kids and I have the richest of the rich kids when it comes to like the economic levels and stuff. And it's just crazy because I went to this high school as well. Like I know our program, I know how the school works, and nothing hasn't really changed within these past 10 years. But I'm gonna say the kids have somewhat changed, especially with technology nowadays, and we're more focused on cyberbullying and all that stuff. And as an educator, you start thinking, okay, am I prepared to have these conversations with my students about, you're saying things that you think is okay to say online, but in real life, you really shouldn't be saying that at all. And I've had those hard conversations with some of my kiddos where I'm like, hey, like, let's reflect back what you just said because you think that's okay to say online and we're with cancel culture and all that stuff. Do you think that's okay? But when you say it out loud, are you going to have that reaction time to respond back to it where it's something appropriate and it's something where it's respectful? Because I guarantee you, majority of the time, it's not at all. Like it's really not at all. So it's just having that, and it's just so much of what our kids are going through too. And you don't want to make the assumption. And so now you're tackling on like, I'm going to this field of education to teach, whether it's theater, whether it's like math or something. But now we're putting on the force of like being a counselor, we're talking about mental health. But at what point do we care about our kids' mental health to sacrifice our own mental health as well? And I think that's what a lot of educators are battling with too. I want to say like we got to normalize, for me, just my stance is normalizing therapy, normalizing conversations, normalizing teachers' health first. Because at the end of the day, you are you and your mental health has to be, and I know that sounds so bad. It's like, it has to be before students,
Well,
but
yeah.
you can't take care of students if you don't take care of yourself. It always comes down to that. So when you're going to this field, are you ready to take on the task of like taking care of you? Because if you don't take care of you're gonna burn out so quick. Because by the time, and I'm hoping I don't bite my tongue on this when I go into my 5th year of teaching, because I guess that's the year where everyone's like, whether I stay or I don't stay kind of thing. And it's just, are you prepared to grow in this field? And if you're not prepared to grow, you might not last. And I know that sounds really hard and rough or something, but I think it's just the honest truth that we as educators have to go through, especially in a climate right now where it's so like we don't know what's going to happen. And it just really also comes down to knowing that, at the end of the day, they're going to graduate. We're going to provide them the resources to graduate. And if they can, just specifically with theater, if we can teach them basic social emotional skills. I mean, that's what I've done as a teacher this year is like, I may not be able, like we've only done one virtual show this year and I'm doing a showcase in January with unknowingly not knowing what the numbers, what it's going to be like. I'm just thinking about my student safety before, because we could have, and I'm okay with us not really shutting down, but like, scaling it down a little bit this year to have them prioritize with online learning, with all these stuff too. Like, and us like, and I would say I'm very grateful that I'm very quick with tech stuff. So like all the online stuff, I was like, I'm not really. I know other teachers like, I know that sounds
No,
really bad.
I get that. Yeah. And my superintendent even came out and he got a lot of heat for this. And I'm friends with my superintendent. This is when I would flip my hair, but like we're friends. We're good friends. And so I knew what he was saying when he said it, but he said teachers are setting the bar too high for themselves. And he wasn't trying to say don't challenge your students or don't challenge yourself. It's right now for your own sanity, for your kids' sanity, for the safety of others. Don't have these lofty expectations, because you're only going to disappoint yourself. Because the one thing we can't control is what we have in front of us. We don't have any control right now. So, but same thing. We did a online show. We're doing a showcase in a month, towards right after or right before finals. I mean, and again, we're just kind of just doing it to make sure the kids are still being fed, if you will. And one of the best things he always says, and he repeats himself over and over, is you can't pour out an empty cup. So you got to keep your cup full, and so that you can get the kids what they need as well. So I totally agree with that. I also think, and you can speak on this too, I think that, and I was alternative certification as well. There has to be at some point a psychology lesson, or one of our professional developments each year has to be focused on getting you better so that you can get your kids better. And yeah, making sure that there's no burnout, because I totally agree with you that if you're not willing to grow, you should step away. And if you're 30 years in and you're still learning, Brad Cummins, who was in our district forever, retired in our district, one of the things he always did every year, he wanted to learn more about what is happening around him in the profession so that he could pass that on to his kids. But there are a lot of teachers, probably more than not, that don't necessarily share that sentiment. And so I totally wholeheartedly agree. What do you think about the whole psychology thing? I mean, as an alternative certification person, we're shown a bunch of Harry Wong videos. We're handed whatever that book is called, The First Year Teacher, whatever the book is, and we're told good luck. Do you think more, especially now in 2020 and beyond, do you think more focus should be put on the psychology of education, especially being a theater teacher, when a kid comes to you before they go to a counselor, because they trust you more, they see you every day? What do you have thoughts on that?
I don't know. I 100. Well, for me, my stance is, and I think it just ties in with my personality. Like I talked about this in our other session that we had. Like, I started off with I'm an empath, so I take in a lot of emotions, and I take in a lot of what people are going through, and a lot of my struggles in my life has been trying to focus on my emotions more than other people's emotions, or just finding that balance. I read a lot of self-help books. Therapy's really up there too as well. And it's just, I mean, and it just goes back to the whole, we are all very similar, even with our differences as well. Um, and having those, and this is just on my stance, this is one that really pops out as one of like my education experience with the short span that they had. I had to handle three of my students had panic attacks all at once. And it was just me. And I'm like, wonderful. And I kid you not, at the end of the conversation, I had my own panic attack
Yeah, sure.
in my bathroom. I want to say it was at the Gaylord too, where I was just like in the bathroom, I was like, this is really hard. Like, I was like, I'm not a mom. Like, I look like their sister. Like, if you
Yeah.
see me, you're like, are you a high school student? It was, I want to say yes, because the conversation of mental health has been such a big thing, especially with our students. It really sucks though that we don't have like, I guess we're trying, and I guess there are programs out there, because I think I want to say at the beginning of the school year we had some, like, I think it was a classes or a workshop on mental health and type of thing, and we were going over that as well. And I want to say like that was a good stepping stone that we are having that conversation. And it's just there's just so many factors to it. Um, and it's just really as educators, I know there's just a lot of resources out there that we don't, not we don't, but like people are afraid or they're not aware that there's resources out there.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to go to therapy because therapy is really expensive, which I think is like, that's not true. There are actually resources out there for low income. There are, you just got to really look into it and, ask for help and ask for the resources, or, even if it's your job, whether it's in teaching profession, like just like, hey, what programs do you have for that? I mean, there's simple things too, like journaling and as well. And for me, I mean, because I did a lot of things on my own, like learning about mental health, not only for myself, but applying it for my students, it's been very beneficial to talk to my students into a matter where when we know something is serious, then you have to obviously bring it to someone who is like your counselor to, make sure the situation is safe. Because that's the main concern, I think, with everyone's like, are they safe? Is everything okay kind of thing? And there's a lot of things that you as an educator may feel like you can handle all at once, but you really shouldn't. You
Right.
need to step back. Like, I can have this conversation with you, but let me bring you to someone who I definitely know will be able to carry this throughout in a safer manner.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, well said.
and so with that being said, like, yes, we as educators, as much as it sucks, like, I'm not going to this field to be your counselor, or
Right.
I'm not in this field to be your mom or being your dad kind of thing. And it's just from my stance, because it can be different for anyone else. I'm okay taking on not being your mom or being your dad or type of thing, but it's more like I'm taking on being that model or person you
Right.
don't have to talk to and just kind of sort out your feelings. And if we need to go somewhere to sort that even more, by all means, let's do it. Let's go. And I mean, I'm okay with that task.
Sure.
For other people, that might not be okay. So
Yeah.
that's my thing. Yeah.
No, that's good. Okay, I'm gonna let you go on this one. I'm gonna completely flip the script, and and again, I wanted to have you on to talk about the activity that we played, a couple days ago, and we barely even touched the surface on that. So maybe
Yeah.
I'll have you on again at some point, because we're gonna skip ahead. But I get asked a lot, because I'm a huge wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling nerd for some reason. I just something I've grown up with since I was 5. So I get asked, if you were to introduce somebody that has never seen wrestling before, if you were to tell them to watch one match, right, to get them to understand why you are so invested in this, what match would that be? And I'll let, I don't need to answer that question right now, but I want to go to the K-pop world, because
Okay.
I've heard K-pop songs, and they're not bad, right? It's not something that I'm going to turn on right when I get into the car. But for those people that have never heard K-pop or know nothing about it, because it's massive. I mean, globally, it's probably one of the larger, if not the largest, genre of music out there. What is the song that you have to listen to in order to be like, to kind of get it, to understand, like, oh, so this is why people love this style of music and this type of music? And I'll give you time. I can edit out a pause if you need me to, but
I'm literally looking at my playlist right now.
yeah,
Um,
is there, or maybe, we have some time. Are there 2 songs? Is there something that somebody has to listen to be introduced to K-pop and kind of understand? And if they don't like the song, at least they gave it that kind of fair, shot. Are you on Spotify, or what do you want?
I'm on Spotify literally right now, just like looking through my playlist. There's just so many.
Yeah.
Because even though with the K-pop, like, it's Korean music,
Sure.
but people say it's K-pop, but like Korean music, there's so many genres. Like, just like we have genres,
Yeah,
they have
right.
R&B, they have hip hop. And I'm a huge R&B person. Right
Yeah,
now, I've been
it's
jamming to a song called Five Star by CL.
okay.
And another one, I guess, hip hop.
Is it the letters CL?
Yeah, the letter CL.
Okay.
CL. She's really big. She used to be in a group called 21.
Okay.
But now she's gone solo.
Uh-oh.
And
Like Beyonce with Destiny's Child. Got it.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
I think right now on my top list, I guess, to introduce is that song, because I've been playing it a lot. music video is super cute too. And there's this. If you want to be generic, you can listen to BTS,
Okay.
any of their songs, but you probably already heard it through like the radios and stuff. But their older stuff are really like that's like the OG K-pop era.
So,
Like
but that's not a very like stereotypical like saying listen to BTS. That's not like a cop out kind of thing. That's a legitimate.
I mean, I think when you want to introduce someone, I guess you introduce what's popular now, and
Yeah.
then kind of just go back to their older stuff
Sure.
because then you'll see their growth. Because I think one of my cousin, her friend, she's like, I introduced her to K-pop, like I introduced her to BTS, and now she's crying over their current comeback. I was like, what? And she was like, yeah. So there's just a lot of genres, but there's like indie as well.
All right.
And I think a lot of it too is you may listen to the beat and it's all happy and generic. And that's what I love about it too, is like there's like trap music or something, because they do have that, they touch base on that kind of genre too. But then you look at the lyrics and it's like super deep and dark
Right.
and sad and emotional. So I think if you're the person who likes looking at lyrics and stuff, look into that too, because they have English translations.
All right.
Minor wisdom.